Absolutely phenomenal morning, guys. This is your Breakfast with the Brand. I am your host, Shaan Rais, as always, flanked by the phenomenal Bobby Jackson. Guys, listen, I know I took it. It was a little rough yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Little rough?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit rough, Bobby? Okay, so we're gonna make it a little bit easier this Tuesday, right? I want to ask you guys though, like, what did you learn yesterday? Put that in the chat. Like, let's have a conversation. Like, let's have a dialogue. Like, it shouldn't be just, I don't want to be the bobblehead. Like, I don't want to be the talking head. Like, this podcast is not meant for that, right? So if you were here yesterday and you got some salient points, what were those salient points? What did you retain? What did you get yesterday that you actually remember? Let's talk about that. Like, what did you get yesterday that you actually remember? So phenomenal morning. We got some phenomenal guests, of course, as always. Yes, phenomenal morning. Sharon, Lawana, Tia, Bradley, phenomenal morning. Let us know, like, what did you, I don't want to, provide a service that isn't being properly utilized. Like, that's TV. That's what Netflix is for. I'm here to help you build your business. I'm here to help you add a zero to your number. I'm here to help you increase your confidence. I'm here to help you have a better life. Like, have a more successful, more powerful, more positive, more pure, more your. A life that is more yours, that you are more in control of. And I just want to know if it's working. Let me know if it's working. Because it's worked for Bobby Jackson. It's also worked for me. It works for my children. It works for my wife. It works for my family. It works for my company. It works for my clients. It works for my employees. So I just want to know, like, is it working for you? Look at this. Go. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. That'll change your life if that's the only thing. But I promise you there's more. Come on, let's go. I'm excited now. See, y'all done made me excited. It might be another rough ride. How you feeling this morning, Bobby? Tell us about it.
I'm super excited to see where things go. Hit the gym this morning. I hit it hard. So I'm feeling real good too about that. But one thing that I think is really interesting that a lot of people might not know is the Breakfast with the Brand does so much more than surface level. And here's why I say that. I was watching something yesterday and it was a professor doing an experiment, very brief experiment. He was taking water and he put it on like a petri dish and they spoke to the water for like 6 months. So one petri dish of water had people speaking to it positively and affirming it. And then one petri dish of water had everything said to it negatively. And what the outcome was after 6 months, they put the water under the microscope and they found that the water that was spoken to negatively for 6 months by the people had like these abrasions and blackness and it was like all lumpy. But then the water petri dish that was spoken positively to for the 6 months crystallized into a snowflake. And it crystallized, like you can find this research, it is evidence-based. And what this taught us scientifically was that water has memory. Water can remember H2O. And the biggest ticket, like that really made me bring this to you guys this morning was your brain is 80% water. Our bodies are like a large percentage of water, like 80% as well, I believe. And what's very interesting about this is if you come to Breakfast with the Brand every day, even though you might not remember, even if you just took away Goshi, your body, which is so much water, is retaining it and remembering it. Very, very remarkable.
I think we'll just take a break on that note. That's phenomenal. I can't wait to see that. I'm going to Google it. Let's grow. There's slow growth and then there's scale. There's incremental growth and then there's exponential growth. What I want to talk to you about is adding a zero to you and experiencing exponential scale. Incremental growth says 1 + 1 is 2. Exponential growth says 1 + 0 is 10. Incremental growth says 2 + 2 is 4. Exponential growth says 5 plus 0 is 50. Guys, listen, when you add a 0 to you, you can add a 0 to the marketplace. You can add a 0 to the value that you bring. So you can add a 0 to your family, add a 0 to your legacy. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about incremental, we're talking about exponential. I always say that business is a spiritual game. Just imagine when you combine your skills, your values, your abilities, your talents to something bigger than you, something greater than you, something like the power of exponential. That is adding a 0. Add a 0 to your competence, add a 0 to your confidence. This is about adding a 0 in your life, your value, your industry, and your mission. Let's grow. The reason why I did this and what I do is help leaders to become brands and brand themselves. You train people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. I teach authenticity marketing. If people can take advantage of you, they will in your personal or professional existence.
My biggest takeaway just from day one is you are the brand. I would recommend it to anybody that's really looking to build a personal brand.
Just the brand in general has changed my life. I've grown so much since I've been a part of this.
I see myself in what he does, and I believe in it just as much as I believe in myself.
All right, very good. So Goshi, growth happens outside, scale happens inside, right? And let me give you another example, a real-time evidence-based example of what this call does. I was never like a runner. Like when I did things that I wasn't supposed to do, I got caught for it because I wasn't a runner. Like I just never ran. I think where I grew up, it was like a thing about running your mouth and using your legs to run. That just didn't jive with manhood or confidence or comfortability in one's skin or being a stand-up individual. I just never ran. I tell you, there's a lot of stuff that comes like baggage with where you grow up and your environment and how you've been spoken to. Like Bobby was just talking about with the water piece, like we're water. So I was conditioned negatively, right? By the environment and by a lot of the inputs and impacts that you have. So you have inputs and impacts. Impacts you notice, or impacts you don't notice. Inputs you probably notice. You'll hear it, you'll see it, but the things that are around you, you won't notice it. So we're here trying to help you speaking life into you, speaking positive business to you so that you can become that crystallization in your life, in your business, in your relationships, in your communication, in your confidence, right? But I was never a runner until we really started this call. Like I had a Nordic track, never used it. Never used it. I'm much more of a Peloton guy or a weights guy. But having Bobby on the call, right? Coaching, relationships, building, providing, serving for free. Serving for free. Let me say it one more time. Serving for free through service to you and through me thinking of different ways that I can scale my clients from the inside and how you can be added to, and I can bring people that have viable information and viable results and viable experiences and viable expertise and education in certain things. I said, let me bring Bobby on the call to help you and for you to see a different version and for you to see results and see what it looks like and get a different perspective than me just talking consistently. So in doing the work, the inner work gets done. So Bobby consistently coming over to his running. I'm like, I'm competitive. I'm naturally competitive. And I'm like, I can run too. And I got this Nordic track downstairs. So I say, let me get on this thing because he sounds excited. He always sounds excited. He sounds exuberant. He's losing weight. He's shining. I'm like, let me see what this whole bike thing is about. So I have included that into my physical regimen, and it has been transformative. And now I can pride myself at my age to say that I am really, really excited about running in the morning. And it has had a very positive effect on my physiology as well as my psychology, right? Positive things happen. So if a person comes here and that's all they get, like, wow, these Black men are health conscious and mental health conscious and physical health conscious and emotional wellness conscious, and they're married and they're family men and they have businesses and they control their clocks. They're not controlled by their clocks, and no one controls their day, and they're disciplined, and they're talking about exercising early in the morning. Maybe I should try that. If that's all you get, I think God is great.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, this is so interesting because I was reading something yesterday that talked about, it was Ecclesiastes. Many of you all may know the book. Solomon, some say the wisest man out there, wisest man to ever live, one of them, right? So in the book, it talks about laziness, and it talks about how you don't want to be lazy. It was just like you want to grind. Like those that's read the book realize that Solomon had this life, and this is very applicable to business. He had this life where everything was vanity. It was like he got the revenue, he got the profit, he got the equity, he got the cars, he got the clothes, he got everything. And after he got all of this stuff, he just looked and he was like, what's it all for? Like, what is any of this good for? And then he came to this realization that if I'm lazy, I have nothing. If I work hard, I can have it all. So the best thing I can do is work hard for the things that matter. And I just wanted to share that because that's something that I think is very important. Why are we working? And are we working for the right reasons? And if we're not working at all, then we're just lazy. And that's not good either. So I just thought that that'd be food for thought.
Another thing that I would like to add is that you get to include your children in your business if you do it the right way. Sometimes I can remember my parents coming home and not talking about the work they did because they weren't so encouraged by it. They were not so empowered by it. They were not so energized about it. I've spoken before about my mother coming home and talking about her bosses at the dinner table and me feeling some kind of way for my father because they were men. So I would wonder, why does my mother bring other men's names and experiences to the dinner table where my father was? And I said to myself, I said, I don't think that's positive, because she wouldn't be talking like glowingly. She would be talking about how this one aggravated her in this way and how this one did that and how this one came in the job and threw a fit and left this woman crying or whatever the case may be. Now, it wasn't my mother who was crying, but she would talk about these tyrannical tirades that these individuals would come in with. And this was something that she had to absorb and endure and impact. And it would impact, and those inputs she brought home to talk about. And there's my father. And I'm like, wow, he doesn't really have the power to change the situation. Like sometimes she'd talk about how she felt negatively impacted. And I would say, you should stay home. And she would laugh at me and say, life just isn't that way. One day you'll learn, Shaan. And I would sit there and I would say, I think I'm learning right now about what I don't like and what I don't think is right. And what I don't think my wife should have to endure. So ever since a young man, 11 years old, 10, it was my decision, very key word, decision, not my opinion. It was my decision that my wife would never bring another man's name or experience, negative or positive, to the dinner table where I sat or where my children sat. And I work to make that a reality. And I still work to make that a reality. So I get to be excited because I'm encouraged and because I'm enlivened and because I get to help other people do the same thing, like control their dinner table, like control the narrative in their home, control their economy, control their emotional state. It's very hard to control your emotional state when your economy is like an EKG machine and you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. It's different when you are the leadership, because when you are the leadership, you get to set the temperature, guys. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's serious. Like, in the home, in your body, in your home, in your body, you get to set the temperature. I get to set the thermostat. I am responsible for the thermostat. I want you to ask yourself, like, some people go to work great, they feel phenomenal, and then as soon as they get to work, it's like, oh, I'm here. Is this what I went to school for? Is this why I'm in debt? Is this all there is? Think about it. You wake up feeling phenomenal, you get to work, you feel sick, start sneezing, start coughing. It's the Petri dish thing. And then when you come home, you spill it on other people. Your children notice and your spouse notice too, the things that you don't notice. Because even though my father didn't share his day, I could tell by his not sharing that it wasn't the best day possible. And I was like, wow, these phenomenal individuals that I love have to endure. They don't really get to choose the experience. They have to endure. So I just want you to think about you as yourself, and as you're starting your business and as you're growing your business, no matter what stage of the revenue you're in, no matter what stage of the business development you're in the right place and you're doing the right thing, because you want those who are looking at you, like I was looking at my parents, to see determination, to see perseverance, to see excitement, to see dedication, to see motivation, to see inspiration, to see empowerment, as opposed to disempowerment, and positive emotions as opposed to negative emotions. Doesn't mean that your business will go up and down. It doesn't mean that your business won't go up and down or you won't experience pitfalls and highs. That you're going to experience that in business. But this is the beautiful thing, guys. You get to control the thermostat. You get to set the temperature.
I like when we have these types of conversations, because it really brings us back to earth, back to reality. I feel like a lot of times as business owners, entrepreneurs, we live in the world of execution if we're good, right? Or the world of risk. And in both of those worlds, it's like we're not really having real conversations sometimes. So one of the things that I wrote down that came to my mind is that you pay or you earn. And then the other thing that I wrote down is everything costs and everything compounds. So the reason I wrote that down was because Shaan said that we go to these jobs that we don't necessarily want to be at, and we go there for 10, 20, 30 years. And when I thought about that, I said, that costs something. That's costing me something. And then the second thing I thought, because I am a finance expert, I know double entry bookkeeping works this way. Simply put, everything that costs you something is also producing something, meaning it's compounding. So if it's costing me time, it's costing me my life, it's costing me energy, what is it compounding? Because it's compounding something. The question is, what is compounding? So that led me to this final thought that I want just us to think about as we have this casual business conversation. With what you're paying, like when you go to wherever you go, be it your job, your business, whatever it is, when you pay what you're paying, do you feel like it's compounding in the direction you want it to? And that's the question. Like, whatever you're paying, be it time, attention, money, whatever you're sacrificing, whatever cost you're paying, is the cost relationship compounding in the right direction? And I'll end with this just to bring it all together so you can see it more clearly. If I wake up early in the morning, it's going to cost me a little bit of sleep. If I don't eat certain foods, it's going to cost me variety. If I don't step out and do crazy things within my marriage, it's going to cost me, so to speak, temptation. So I sacrifice all those things. But in costing and what it costs me, it also compounds for me. So my health compounds, and my fitness compounds, and my relationship with my wife compounds. So what I'm saying is, what are you sacrificing? What are you paying? What cost are you enduring? And is that cost compounding in the right direction?
I enjoy cognitive conversations. And I pride myself on not a negative, false sense of pride or arrogance, but I pride myself positively in confidence on having a tendency to make sure that everything is evidence-based. A tendency to be quality assurance. Quality assurance. Every conversation, every word, and everything verifiable. And Bobby knows it too. And so there's a standard here, guys. I want you to understand that. This is not opinion-based. This is all going to be fact-based. That's why when he talks, he's going to bring something that's evidence-based and give you the resource. That's like a peer-reviewed article with the resource, and you can check the references, which I believe it was Lawana did. You started mentioning the Petri dish. She actually went and found the study. There it is, right? So I'm giving you a premise right now. I'm setting the table for what I'm about to say. When I was young, I thought in patterns, and I still do. But when I was young, I started this very early. And look at this, compounding, the cost compounding in the right direction. Thank you for that, Sharon. We have an open dialogue here. We have a conversation with our population, right? So this is not a one-way street. We will include you, mention you, and bring your comments up if they are positive and substantive, which that one was. So let me show it again. Cost compounding in the right direction. Now, as a young man, I think in numbers. When I began looking at the workforce, I realized something because I had a lot of options. A lot of you have a lot of options. High level of education, you got a lot of options. High level of experience, you got a lot of options. And I realized this very early on. I said, 8 times 3 is 24. It's going to sound so simple, but it's so complex. And it means so much. 8 times 3 is 24. So if I work 8 hours a day in 3 days, that's 24 hours. So every 3 days is 1 day, one full 24-hour day. Well, by the same correlation, if 3 days equals 1 full day, 3 years equals 1 full year, right? 3 years equals 1 full year. And I looked at certain jobs and I said, do I want to spend 24 hours here? And then I said, do I want to spend a full year here? Because if I spend 3 years here working, then that means I've spent 1 full year here. See, I had opportunities. So one of the jobs that I looked at was a CO, like a correctional officer. And I said to myself, this is when I looked at it really deeply, Bobby, because I was like, okay, the money is good, the benefits are good, the associations and the relationships may be good. But I said, do I want to spend a year in prison? I want you to think, guys, because whatever you're giving your time to, you are sacrificing serious amounts of your time doing. So it's very important, the decisions that we make and the environments that we subject ourselves to. And I said, well, if I spend 3 years in college studying something, if I study something or really like work on something like my business, if I work on my business for 3 years and I give it a full 8-hour day, or let's say this, because this is how I broke it down, guys. I said, okay, if I spend from 9 to 5 on what I need to pay for, food, clothing, shelter, things like that. If I can spend from 5 to 9 on my own business, that's 4 hours. Well, if I double that, that's a full day. So if I do this every single day, then in 6 years, I will have spent 1 full year on my business. Now, what happens if I take Saturday and Sunday too, the full 8 hours? Now I can turn those 6 hours into like 4. And when I say a full 8-hour day, I'm talking about a full year of every single day, of every single hour, of every single minute, of every single second focused on the business. We don't know what we can do with time. Like we really don't know what we can do with energy. And one way to make you see it in real time is, or not understand the magic in what I'm saying. If we don't measure it, we don't see our children getting taller. If we don't measure it, we don't see them getting taller. But when we take them somewhere and a relative sees them, relative says, wow, they sprouted up overnight. So while you're working on your business, the level of determination, the level of dedication, the level of deep work that you put into your business, that you invest into your business, what happens is you don't notice the growth. You don't notice the growth. But when you introduce it to the marketplace, when it's done the right way, they're like, wow, this thing sprung up overnight. You're giving some phenomenal value. This is unbelievable. And you're able to raise your confidence, raise your prices, raise your brand in the marketplace. Or in my case, or like in Bobby's case, you're able to raise your spouse up out of work. Raise them up out of their job and place them home, where some people would say they should be protected. As a protector, as a father, as a husband, your job is to protect. Now, people look at this differently, and it's perfectly fine. And I'm not saying the way you were raised is wrong. I'm just saying have options. You want to have as many options as you can. One of the things, I'm going to leave you with this before we go to the break. One of the things I taught my son early on is you want to be able to afford your opinion. You might want to write that down. You really want to be able to afford your opinion. I taught this to my son. I brought him home some sneakers. So I'm from Harlem, and we love white shoes, white on whites, Air Force Ones, or shell toes. So I brought him some white on whites, Air Force Ones. And he said, thank you, Dad. And it just hit me like, boom. He said, thank you, Dad. I love these sneakers. And I said, boom. So why do you like the sneakers? Well, I like them because you bought them, and I like them because I don't know, they just fit so well. And I'm like, but why do you really like the sneakers? And it impacted me as a father. I said, let's go to the sneaker store. So I take him to the sneaker store because I like white on whites. I like Air Force Ones. But if he's given options and he has the option to pay for his own sneakers and choose whatever he wants, he might like something different. So I taught my son, I said, listen, son, I said, never be in a position where you can't afford your opinion. Do you like the sneakers? He said, yeah, I like the sneakers. I really like the sneakers. So I took him to the sneaker store to let him see. He said, wow, I like those sneakers, and I like those sneakers, and I like those sneakers too. And they weren't white on whites, and they weren't Air Force Ones. And I realized that by not giving him the opinion or the opportunity to go buy his own sneakers, I was actually conditioning him to not be able to afford his opinion. So I said to him, I said, listen, you want to grow up and you want to be able to earn. You want to be able to add value, transact value. You want to be able to find something that's valuable and provide it to someone who values it, so that you in turn can become valuable, because you are value. However you perceive yourself, like you are value. You listening to this right now, you are value. And I said, what you want to be able to do, son, is you want to be able to come into the store, come into the restaurant, come into the real estate market, come into business. You want to be able to come into the job. You want to be able to come into the job market. You want to be able to come into the conversation and be able to afford your opinion. A lot of times our opinions are conditioned by our circumstances and limitation. This is The Breakfast with the Brand. We'll be right back. Let's grow. It's very important that you know yourself to the highest degree possible, because it's through knowing ourselves that we're able to know other people. You are the most important person in the room, and the better that you know yourself, the better that you're able to communicate to others. So you're not only playing the game knowing who you are, but you're also playing the game knowing who everyone else is, so that you're not playing blind.
He's extremely engaging with people. He has a fantastic smile, and he's just very high energy person.
This is called leadership development. So we have to be independently knowledgeable and considerate to know who we are, so we can more effectively know who other people are. As the leader, it's your responsibility to allocate resources in the right places. If you don't know how to communicate effectively, you're losing the battle. I said Shaan Rais. I'm proud. I said Shaan Rais. Leadership is not the brand they made for us.
Listen, he brought fire, heat. He didn't hold back.
20 years down the line, what I could sell, why not serve first? Service over salary. Branding like a leader closes the gap for people who want branding. Speaking like a leader closes the gap for people who are nervous about speaking. If Steve Jobs would have speculated, we wouldn't have Apple.
He changed lives. He helped people open up their business and start their business.
We are the brand. Some people say, Shaan, should I quit my job? Mentally, yes.
As a speaker too, to be able to learn from him and watch him and you know, game respects game. And I want to have that much game someday.
The right client, pay $500,000 for what you do. You have to be bold in your beliefs.
He has been an amazing asset to this event and a pleasure to work with. Very captivating, collaborative, worked very well with the audience.
I want to help you. Put a 0 behind your number, right?
The session was great. How he is online, virtually, he is even more phenomenal in person.
Be the face of change that you want to see. Stop asking questions and start giving demands.
The entire team has just been absolutely incredible. They are a joy to work with. They go above and beyond.
Give yourself a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes. What is your take on what I just stated, Bobby? What's your take on that?
I think I can resonate with this very deeply because of how long I spent in the military. So when we say no options, no opinion, we mean that in the military. Because I remember when COVID-19 hit. And when COVID-19 hit, there was a mandate that came out. And the mandate said that you will be vaccinated with this vaccine if you are a United States military service member. All right. So that being said, no one had an option or choice. And inoculation at the highest, to the degree in which we were inoculated, was, some would say, borderline non-constitutional. And we were given the ultimatum that said, either get it or get out. And I had to watch commissioned officers say, this is against my belief, it's against my constitutional defense and my moral and religious preferences. All of these things came into question. And some people had to put away years of their sacrifice. Long story short, you could have saw a captain with 8 years in who refused, or maybe a major that refused to get inoculated and got out. And that was not an honorable discharge. They were forced out because they would not receive the shot. So when you say having the ability to afford your opinion, that resonated with me really well because I didn't want to get it, originally. And I didn't have a choice. And I had to let them inject me with something. And I just had to roll with it. So I'll end with this. There were different brands at the time. You had I can't even remember the brands, but I remember a captain friend of mine got injected. Heart started to poke with like pallitate or something like that. I don't know the actual term for it. But like, thank you. That's what started to happen to him. And he couldn't run the way he used to. He couldn't eat the way he used to. He had one injection, body responded negatively to it. And you just started to see that in the service. So we were injected with stuff. People's lives and bodies were never the same. And they had nothing to do, or they couldn't do anything about it, especially if they were depending on the military for their family sustenance.
I just wanted to let that sit for a minute. So I wanted to say, first off, I think I respect everybody's decisions, and I thank everybody for their sacrifice and service. And I realize that everybody's in different varying levels of service. If you're in business, you're in service. If you're here, you're in service. And there's different levels and there's degrees of service. If you're in a higher level of service, then I applaud the sacrifice. So these people that chose not to had a choice. But if you can't afford your opinion, it's kind of hard to find your voice. If you can't afford your opinion, it's kind of hard to find your voice, because there are implications and consequences for the decisions that you make that are voiced. Now, your parents say that everything that's thought is not meant to be stated. Everything that you think isn't meant to be said. I'm one of those people, super high D, super high I. So if I think it 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say it, right? And I learned really fast, like, oh no, like some things are not politically correct. But when you can afford your opinion, your voice changes. The more you can afford your opinion, the more your voice changes. Think about how people go to work. Hey, how you doing? When they speak to certain people, when they speak to authority, their voice gets higher. But the more authoritative they become, the less they care about how someone receives. They can be more honest, more genuine, more authentic, more comfortable. And really, in your comfortability level is your optimism level, and it's proven that your happiness impacts your health. Authenticity and the lack thereof impacts your health negatively. The more contained, the more constricted, the more codified you have to be. The more compromised is another word. That has a effect, like the Petri dish, on your physical ecology, psychology, biology. You know how you just feel something is off sometimes? You can just feel it in the air like it's a vibration, it's an energy. When someone doesn't agree with something, just imagine the frequency that takes place when you're inside of your own body going against your own self. Psychologically, they call it cognitive dissonance. Google it. Cognitive dissonance. It's when someone rationalizes something that they would rather not agree with, but they have to under the circumstances. And certain populations have had to do that longer than others for a very long, very, very, very long time. And as we become more and more economically empowered, we give ourselves the ability to become less and less compromised. And by default, we become more and more comfortable, more and more happy, more and more healthy in our relationships, communications, business, buying habits. A lot of times the stress that we feel or the depression that we may feel comes from our own actions, but our own actions take place as a reaction to being negatively impacted. I know I said a lot. And I know it might not have been caught. You might want to come back to this. There's certain negative impacts that certain communities experience, such as debt or uncustodial or unoptimized spending habits. But they result in things like low credit scores. And some communities are more impacted than others by this. But it comes from a compromising in other social situations and settings, which causes you to need to feel a relief, Bobby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a person needs to feel appreciated or feel like they accomplished something. So when you buy something, there's a hit of dopamine. Now we're going into neurology. And I don't want to go too deep into this stuff, but I'm telling you that there's a scientific evidence-based reason behind everything I say and everything that I do, and even the business model, even the name, the leadership leverage, and branded like a leader is to give you a hit of positive self-perception. Hold on. Am I a leader? Hold on. Am I a brand? Hold on. Can I raise my opinion? Hold on. Can I raise my self-perception? Hold on. Can I raise my self-respect? Hold on. Can I raise my voice?
You know, Coach, this reminds me of another story. Like Ecclesiastes is on fire today. There's another story in there that's very similar to this one. Well, I'll share it, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people. So the story goes like this, very short. There was a guy. He was a poor guy, but he was very wise. And the community came under attack. And as the community came under attack, all of these people were assaulting the community. And then you had this wise guy that pretty much saved the community because he helped position the people, helped ward off the battles, helped fight everything away. And once everything got fixed and stabilized, they started looking at the individual who was responsible. And the book pretty much says, because this was a guy that had no means, he was just poor and impoverished, that all of the stuff that he did, all of his wisdom was for naught. And pretty much it was saying that if you are not an individual of means, it doesn't matter how wise you are and what you accomplish, your voice is still minuscule. It still goes unheard. It must be married with the ability to influence. And I think that's a very interesting word that's been thrown around a lot. Influencer brands and influencer this and influencer that. But it's like there are very few influencers as powerful and effective as financial means. And I believe that having your own business and developing a financial, what do I want to call it? A financial fortress, so to speak, around you and your family gives you the ability to be as wise as you so feel, and then to also influence the world around you and your world personally. So I just thought that that was very interesting because, like, we can have all this education and, you know, education, experience, and expertise, but if we don't have the economic impacts to go along with that, are we really as influential as we would like to be?
Viability and volatility. Viability and volatility. If you're not viable, then your conditions and circumstances are volatile. I think of those who precede me, those who come before me, the voiceless and the choiceless. And it conditions my decisions because it would have been a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier now not to be so challenging, not to be so leadership oriented, not to be so, you understand, like confrontational, because the voice and the position of a challenger brand is one which is easily pushed back, right? We have a stereotypical supposition centered and projected around things such as Black male leadership. And the supposition is there's supposed to be a certain decibel to which you exercise your voice. Or it goes from, there's so many words thrown around to condition one not to use this, such as toxic or threatening. Or two, TOO, whatever, doing too much, too loud, too strong, too forceful, too opinionated. Physical stance, posture, confidence is looked down upon in certain communities. With certain tones and hues, confidence is a bad thing. In other communities, confidence is a great thing, and it's taught and it's pushed up. In other communities, it's pushed down. Don't be too proud. Don't be too loud. Don't do too much. And I just want you this morning, this Tuesday, before you start your day, like Tuesday being 2, I want you to think like, are you being too much of something or are you not being enough of something? And is it your honest, original, integral opinion, or is it happenstance? Is it conditioning? For those of you who don't know what conditioning is, think of Pavlov or Google Pavlovian. Because our circumstances determine our decisions. I can remember thinking that college didn't even exist for us. Like, why would I go to college? That's not for us. Why would I get married? That's not for us. Why would I do business? That's not for us. That's not what we do. We do rap music. We do basketball. We do boxing. We don't do business. Not high level business, not leadership business for sure. We might be on 125th Street hustling books, but we don't really do business. We don't do stock. We don't do real estate. Like those are just things we don't do. Marriages that last, things we don't typically do. They're stereotypes. And I want you to shake those and break those if possible. And it's okay if you determine or really honestly, authentically decide whatever your course of direction is, but make sure, test it, put it in the Petri dish and put some heat on it. Find out, is it conditioning? Is it conditioning that determines your decisions and determines your opinions? Because I found through business, through leadership, through learning, through education, through empowerment, through experience, that some of my decisions were not my own. Some of my decisions were given to me. They were predisposed. And because they were predisposed, the decisions lead to the actions lead to the consequences. The consequences lead to the reality. So some of us are sitting in realities that are not even of our own making. So I know we're having a conversation. Is this good, guys? I mean, I hope I haven't gone too far off into the left. Is this okay? Like, is everybody still comfortable? I don't know. Are you comfortable, Bobby? Is this okay? Is this a good conversation we're having, or is it a little bit?
I'm loving it. I'm standing by for the Flames. Bradley is enjoying it, but like that last piece was just so impactful to me, I know we only got like 2 minutes or so, but I do want to share this very briefly. What you just said made me think about love. And I'm a father and I'm a husband as well. So you said some of my decisions were not my own, and the actions of the decisions had consequences, and the consequences created a reality, and the reality that I might have experienced at a point in my life was not a reality of my own creating. And that to me was so powerful, because when you get married, and I have a blended family as well. Like when you get married to someone, you are entering a reality that instinct or just basic intuition would tell you that they created this. They did this. We have free will. Everything about us is our own choices. And when we have that mindset and we're not conscious of the reality or what creates realities, we can say, I don't deserve this. I'm better than this. Why do I have to deal with this? And I've just learned that real love, to a degree, has to do with helping people create the reality that they want. And I'll just like kind of end it with that. But that's love, because and I'll just end it. It's like you have no idea how much work goes into changing a reality until you're actually changing one. And when you're doing that with someone and a lot of their actions have a direct impact on you, kids, spouses, like it requires love to do it.
The reason why I went into leadership was upon this realization, guys. Upon this realization in college, the reason I went into leadership was because I saw the difference in the money. I saw the difference in the money, like in service and leadership. I saw the difference. I was a public servant. I did the social services piece. I did the counseling piece. I did the psychology piece. I did the groundwork, the grassroots work with the population that needed it the most, but the population that was appreciated the least. So the providers of services to this population was paid the least, appreciated the least, rewarded the least. And there was another population that was appreciated. So they were compensated to a higher degree. I said, what is this? What is this? What is this construct? And the construct was leadership. And as I looked at the construct and rolled it over, I know we're about a minute or two over. It's okay. Just work with me for a minute. I said, as I'm looking at this leadership thing and I hear words like leadership, coaching, personal development, motivation, succession planning, executive coaching, I'm like, what is this language? And I realized then there was a gap. And I think referentially, I think we all do. That's what I mean by conditioning, not being given the examples. So I started looking at the examples. What are the examples that I can relate to, that I can see myself as being, because I see them and me and them, and I couldn't find them that came from my background, that rose up from where I came from and became leaders and became business leaders and became economically viable the right way, safely. I couldn't find them. And I said, for the same thing Bobby just said, I said, wow, I'm a father at this time. I got a lot of responsibility at this time. And I said, well, if I'm 30 and change and I can't think of one, then the children that I love and that I'm responsible for can't see one that looks like themselves either. That's when leadership no longer became an option. It became an obligation. This is The Breakfast with the Brand. See you guys tomorrow. Let's grow for real.